Hello and welcome to OT the podcast. We're here talking about watches, time, and
how to spend it.
My name's Felix Schultz, and
I'm Andy Green.
Nice.
And we are here to talk about and to someone quite important today, Felix.
We always talk to important people.
Although,
everyone we talk to is important.
And all our guests are our favourite guests, but this one is pretty cool. His name's Adam Brown.
Oh yeah, I don't know who that is.
Well, if I say the name Orlebar Brown, does that ring a bell?
It does ring a bell.
Well, like his namesake might suggest, Adam Brown is the co-founder of
Orlebar Brown.
Yeah, resort and swimwear brand Orlebar Brown.
Fancy swimming pants.
Very fancy. So basically the story there is he started this widely successful leisurewear brand. The core focus is sort of tailored swimwear, which Adam will get into. He started it really late in life, about 40, which I guess to start a business is quite late. But he exited to Chanel in a really big acquisition a couple of years ago and sort of stayed on as creative director, which he, I guess, prefers.
I mean, that's great. Like, you sell your business, you get to do all the fun stuff and none of the logistics. Win.
Yeah, and a quick scan of his Instagram account, like he's living the dream in that regard.
Yep.
Loves travel, all those sorts of cool things. This opportunity came to us via IWC.
He also loves his watches.
He loves his watches, and Orlebar Brown and IWC have kind of recently collaborated on a collection and on their yacht club, the Portugieser Yacht Club.
Yeah, it's a Portugieser yacht club. It's a new thing. This is a slightly funky twist on it. And I think it'll be sold in Orlebar Brown boutiques, which is a kind of cool twist on it.
And so the swimwear, the shorts have this sort of famous buckle system, which is I guess the tailored approach to it, and that buckle is used on the strap, which is cool.
Nice.
And then there's like a whole collection of basically
IWC resort wear.
And it's exactly what it would, like you imagine it should look like.
Yeah, prim, proper, Swiss.
So we'll get into that with Mr. Adam Brown in a second. Before we do, we have to take a quick break.
Today's episode is brought to you by Swiss Typefaces, who helped make it possible. Have you ever wondered what the city of Stockholm, Google Android, and David Beckham's football team, Inter Miami, have in common with OT the podcast?
Felix, it keeps me up at night.
Well, we all use fonts from Swiss Typefaces. When we were building the visual identity for OT, we knew that the right typeface was going to be very important because they're everywhere, especially if you're in digital, which everyone is.
But typefaces are often overlooked, and that's why there's so much yucky Comic Sans out there in the world.
Yuck. So we knew we wanted something cool and something a little bit more custom, which is exactly what Swiss Typefaces were able to offer. We ended up with Euclid, which we liked for its strong geometry and graphic feel. It's on our logo, it's on our socials. It's a big part of the brand. Though we very nearly went with some of the cool, wild, experimental fonts from their lab section.
So if you're looking to build a brand or refresh your existing one, don't overlook the typeface and check out SwissTypefaces.com. And we're back.
Nice. What are we going to do now?
We're going to call up Adam Brown. He's in Cornwall, I think.
Yeah, let's dial those numbers. First place to start it, Adam, is where did Orlebar Brown come from?
So Orlebar Brown started in 2007. I didn't work in fashion. I didn't work in retail. I just had a particular idea I got turned away at lunch at a hotel in Rajasthan. And so the idea for a short you can swim in rather than a swim short was where it started. And I had the idea in 2005. We launched in 2007, and then slowly, with the tailored swim shorts at its heart, we've evolved into a more full sort of resort lifestyle collection around the themes of holiday, sort of around sunshine, travel, happiness, and good times. So it started with t-shirts, polos. It's now evolved into outerwear, chinos, shirting, sort of anything for a holiday.
Lovely. And for someone that's not necessarily familiar, I think in Australia, certainly growing up, it's either the option of board shorts or budgie smugglers.
Yeah.
What is tailored swimwear?
So if you think of it, if you think of a short you can swim in, so we started off the premise. I've never really understood why anybody wanted a baggy boxer short, a voluminous baggy boxer short, acres of wet fabric hanging down to their knees. It's just never. I've never really understood it. I've never really thought it's sort of covering up anything or making you showing you off in your best light, how you could possibly best look. And so the idea of fit, the idea of something that, if a man, whatever their body shape, they're fat, thin, big bottom, small bottom, they go and have a suit that fits them properly, it's ultimately more flattering. And really the premise is exactly the same. You have a swim short that fits you, whatever body shape you are, wherever you are, it'll ultimately be more flattering. And if you look good, you feel good. You can tell, as you get, I was 40 when I started OB, and you know, at that point in life, you sort of need a little bit more help. You don't have the joy of when you're 20-year-old and you take your clothes off in public. You just feel a little bit more self-conscious.
I love the concept, but I can imagine there's a whole lot of difference and sort of maybe behind the scenes things you need to be aware of when you're making fabric that has to get wet and dry and is sort of fairly active as
Yeah.
opposed to, you're sort of a pair of tailored shorts.
The main one, clearly is chemicals. The chemical. If you're all of our product, has to be tested against chlorine. Every then you have salt water, then you have light, then you have just the amount of times they go into water. There's all those issues that have to be a normal cotton short has to be tested for washing at sort of 30, 40 degrees or whatever you choose. And there's the chlorine, and also in some countries, we've had product that comes back, and once you start inquiring, there's the range of chemicals that can go into swimming pools, especially in an unmonitored environment. So often that is really sort of private villas where there might be a gardener just putting something. It's slightly more unregulated than in a hotel, or so there's
Yeah, sure.
you have to be aware of chemicals. I think there's also a thing about movement. When you're on holiday, you're up, down, rushing around, and just the strength of stitching quality. If we have metal side fasteners, they're made of Zamac, so it's heat resistant, so they don't. If you touch them, they don't get overly hot. It's all those sort of considerations that go into it, as well as not wanting it to feel like an artificial. Wanting it to have a vaguely sort of natural feel.
Yeah, okay. And is that something that's changed a lot, like from when you sort of first started out? Is it fundamentally the same sort of materials and fabrics you're working with, or
Yeah, we work
is
with
there
the shorts. The shorts have not changed at all, apart
really?
from a slight sizing adjustment since 2005. It's originally made in 2007. I'd say our sizing is more accurate now, but essentially the 60 elements, the shape waistbands, the side fastener, which is our signature, all those elements are absolutely as they were on the day we launched. And I think
Yeah.
the nice part is that we have a hero product that sits, which a collection can be built around it. So, we're the first brand. I think there are many brands that had swimwear as part of a collection. I think we're the first brand that actually made swimwear the focus of a broader collection, and it's a different perspective to come at a creative process with.
Yeah, that's really and certainly on the male side of swimwear, I'd agree with you.
Yeah,
And speaking of that sort of visibility, I mentioned to my partner earlier today that I was interviewing you, and I was, that you were the guy behind Orlebar Brown, and she had no idea who I was talking about, which is,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
understandable. But then I said, "Oh, yeah, your shorts were featured in Skyfall. They were the ones that Daniel Craig."
yeah,
And she cut me off, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about exactly
yeah,
now."
yeah.
So could you? I think that's probably a lot of people will be aware of your affiliation with the Bond franchise. Can you tell us about how that came around and what that has meant for your business?
Well, Bond is one of those. I don't believe there are many menswear brands that don't have a James Bond picture somewhere on a mood board for some
Mm.
collection. And the pictures of Sean Connery as in Doctor No in the toweling onesie were on the original mood boards for OB. So they've always, and we're British, and we're about adventure, and we're about exploration. There's always been an element of humour. I think
Mm.
all of our brand man, the romance, all that. So there's a natural alignment between the two brands, between Bond and OB. But I think there's also tailoring, but the opportunity, the Skyfall thing, really came from nowhere. It wasn't anything. We hadn't had any conversations. It came through a request to our PR company, and
Wow.
we submitted some shorts, and very luckily they chose to wear our OB Classic Setter short in Sky. Now we've renamed to Riviera, but it was interesting. It was a sky blue short in Skyfall. It was a short as is. Nothing. There was no planning. There was no nothing. The
No
short just
lasers
appeared.
shooting out the side.
no, nothing like that. No bombs. No, 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 nothing
And
happening.
and that must have been quite uh, a proud, maybe a
A
personal proud moment,
significant
or
moment.
on many levels. And how has that
Yeah,
changed?
yeah. No,
Um,
it was hugely significant. We were a 5-year-old brand at that point. We'd been going for 5 years, and to have a global franchise which is so intrinsically aligned with menswear, so intrinsically British, but ultimately international, to have that association with uh, romance, adventure, all those things I said before. And it just came, and once you start seeing the effects of reaching a global audience, and even though it's a blink and you miss it moment,
hmm.
just
Yeah.
those things clearly on a small business, which is working from West London, it enables you to reach a more global audience far, far quicker. And it's just, and those, again, it's, I've always, when we talk about the IWC thing, it just comes, it's a far better, it felt like a very natural partnership. And it was very unforced and it was totally right. So I think it was an unforced collaboration that felt very right and enabled us to reach a far wider audience very quickly.
Of course. Now, I think we'll get to IWC in just a second.
Yeah.
But I think, Andy, did you have something around the growth of the business?
Yeah. So you mentioned, you started the business when you were 40, and I think you've had, call it meteoric rise to success. I believe, Chanel came on board, and there was a pretty significant buyout in 2018. And in
Yeah.
the business world, that's a very rapid, partial exit. We don't need to know the details, but
Mm.
to go from sort of that, one man show, putting everything together, and barely 8 years later exit in such a big fashion. I'm really curious to hear what business sort of lessons you learnt along the way. I think partnerships clearly have been very important, but I'd love to kind of hear, your business lessons that you've learned, whether it's, staying focused, you know,
Yeah. I
keeping
think
things pointed on the.
it's fairly stat. They're fairly. I think weirdly it worked to my advantage. The fact I hadn't worked in fashion, the fact I hadn't worked in retail, the fact I'd never had any, barely shopped online. And I think the lessons I learned, is starting a business such as Orlebar Brown. We had one product in 4 lengths. That's how I launched
Yep.
it, and that's how it was for 2 years. So I think the not having any experience, not having done it before, definitely forced me to focus on one thing. My fear of failure, and also being forced, your fear of failure is far greater.
Hmm.
Okay.
So I think focusing on one thing definitely helped us. Having one product, becoming known for that. It wasn't a complicated message. It was having, it's not just another collection of clothes that nobody really understands. It was a tailored swim short. The original and best tailored swim shorts in the world. That's it. And I think it was about fit. It was about having that razor sharp message for the customer could understand in 2 minutes was definitely helpful. I think having I call it a sort of entrepreneurial approach. I never really understand why when startups they try and delegate, for me, it was definitely a learning process getting to do, whether it was just picking and packing orders or learning about a website or how do I get stock into America. Just doing it myself, ask and just get on and do it. Don't find other people to do it. Just you'll learn the right questions to ask by attempting to do it yourself. And I had no money, so I couldn't afford to pay any staff, so I had to do it myself. I think the other bit was just don't be afraid to ask questions. There's so many challenges and things you need to address, but there's definitely in London. There's a big group of people who are very willing to share their information and are very generous with their advice. And you don't have to always take it, but I think it's quite a lonely thing when you start a business. It can be quite a sort of solitary uh, experience. But including other people, don't be embarrassed of asking questions. Don't be shy of saying, "I don't understand that. I don't know how to do this," and trying to find the right person to answer the question you need answering. So I think those are, and I think the other bit was just it's that awful phrase. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But it's
Yeah.
absolutely it's absolutely true. I'm really sorry. Whatever my cash flow was, a handwritten sort of boxes, but just trying to understand what happens to cash in 3 months if I only sell 10 shorts as opposed to 100 shorts. If I pay this bill then, or things like that. Just managing cash. You don't. It's really painful when you run out of cash. It's really painful for any
I
business.
bet.
So, and I think when you're that type of startup where you don't have money behind you, just managing that right from the beginning frees you up to focus on the things that are important, not just constantly scrambling around for money. And I think be true to your voice. The other frustration with clothing brands or with any brand is not having personality. I think Orlebar Brown has a very distinct personality, whether it's people like it or they don't. I think having a really clean voice, knowing exactly who you are, as a man of a certain age, with a certain perspective on life, and I was the only one making any decisions. Orlebar Brown naturally developed a very clear view on life and a way of communicating with customers and a perspective on product that perhaps might have been a bit more diluted if I'd been younger, if I hadn't had that strength of character. And I just believe having a real point of view and a real identity sets you in good stead to cut through noise.
Yeah, fascinating. And look, I've read several interviews with yourself, and it sounds like you're a very focused individual. And from what you've just said, extremely calculated. You've got 2 Australian boutiques, and I'm really curious to kind of hear how those decisions were made and what the Australian market means to OB and to yourself, and what your plans are for Australia.
Sure. Well, Australia's always been, because of the language, language is easy. It's easy. It was always
Yeah.
easy for us to talk to people in Australia. Australia naturally has a very sunny, outdoor, beach, pool type lifestyle. It was clearly, along with places like sort of Miami in the south of France and Riviera and stuff, was one of those places always on every plan that right from the get-go, where should we go? Let's try Australia. And I think so. It was a natural fit from the beginning. It was it was easy-ish thing to get going because of the language. When we wanted to try and launch a website in France or Germany, or let alone places in the Far East, Japan and stuff, you've got language issues which you don't have in Australia. So whether it's emails or customer service or any of those bits, you can easily communicate, which I
Yeah.
can't. It's advantageous. So it was always there. We developed it. I sort of jumped in faster. I launched the Australian website more earlier than I should have done, and we perhaps weren't ready. But again, opening a store, in Bondi and Noosa, it's just they are places where our customer in Australia naturally goes on holiday, and they are naturally thinking about Orlebar Brown in those places. And I think it's just it never again, it just felt it was an obvious one right from the beginning. And Australia's up there in the top 5, our top 5 countries.
Really?
It is clearly a country. Yes, even and it's clearly now with sort of Chanel's expertise in Australia, then that support, whether it's around warehousing, whether it's around logistics, whether it's around finding the right locations, all that sort of thing. Hopefully that will help us along a bit faster.
And speaking of that Australian thing, is this the Orlebar Brown, sort of wearer or customer? Is it a regional focus on different products, or is it sort of a fairly international style?
No, it's fairly international. It's fairly
Yep.
international. The whole point, Orlebar Brown was never, right at the very beginning, whether it's my politics or my beliefs or whatever, I believe it's an inclusive. I used to work in the voluntary sector, so naturally, I want Orlebar Brown to be an inclusive brand. I never thought I'm just making for Europeans or I'm just making but it's always got to, whether it's the palette that appeals to South America or to the Far East or to Australia, it has to be, and it has to appeal to a broad range of people. It can't just be to a select group, that real small group of people.
That's right. I recall reading you did work in the not for profit space. I think Felix
Yeah.
and certainly I have quite a bit of experience in those sectors ourselves professionally, outside of the lovely world of watches. I recall you kind of learnt a few lessons in that space that you transitioned over to OB.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that
Yes, I mean, I suppose again that goes back to the asking. I used to set up. I worked in HIV in prisons and children's charities, and I used to raise money. So if they wanted a particular building or event or something, wanted to launch a new service, I'd try and raise money. So I'd go around and I'd put committees together, which essentially is asking people to ask other people, or essentially asking people to find people who are interested in that thing. And it's
Mm.
exactly the same as starting a company, finding the person who understood who liked what I was doing and was interested in helping, whether it's about distribution or about e-com or sourcing, sustainability, whatever it is, just finding the right people, interested people who have the right expertise. But I think also just on a cultural level, whether it's about inclusivity, whether it's about
Yeah.
equal opportunities, all that sort of thing, just naturally not trying to be helpful, kind of non-discriminatory, all that sort
Mm.
of thing, naturally sort of fed into all of our brand as well.
Yeah, right. That's fascinating. My NGO was a HIV related one as well, though not with prisons.
Oh, no, no, it wasn't HIV. They were separate. Yes.
Okay. Well, there's crossover. Um, so how? Let's maybe chat about the most recent partnership that you've got on the cards. I think
Yeah.
the one with
The reason
IWC.
you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, it's a really exciting one, and it is one that came about very naturally. I was approached by Chris Granger CEO of
Hmm.
IWC. We'd already been approached by two other watch brands over the years about possibly doing a watch with them, and I th- and the re so as I was approached by Chris, it was the year they were trying to talk about the Portugieser watch.
Hmm.
The focus was around yacht clubs.
Mm.
There is a particular lifestyle, and so it just felt a very natural fit for Orlebar Brown uh, to work. The DNA, the values, the philosophy of the IWC totally marry up to what Orlebar Brown aspires to be, and is. I think so it came about from a direct approach. We had, I think, before you agree to do anything in this world, you sort of get to know people, before you
Mm.
Yeah.
jump into bed. So there were lots of meetings. There was various meetings, coffees, chatting. They came with mood boards. There were mood boards that we totally understood and felt very comfortable working with. So before we actually agreed to do it, there were quite a few meetings, get to know you meetings, and idea throwing around. But then it became once we'd agreed, it became a really collaborative process.
I might ask a little bit of a cheeky question.
Yeah, go on.
You said you'd sort of had conversations with a few other brands. What
Mm.
was it about IWC that got them over the line?
Well, I
Mm.
think that there's there's a DNA. So whether it's around quality, whether it's around construction, whether it's around sourcing, whether it's just an approach to doing things, as well as that very sort of considered but also rather exciting way that they talk to their customer. So whether
Mm.
it's the Spitfire trip, the round the world Spitfire trip they've just completed this year, there's a lifestyle element as well as an integrity to how they approach their design of their watches, and so it has to be about DNA and values. And if we partnered with another brand whose DNA and values were about something, it's not wrong, it's just different. It just
Mm.
didn't feel right. Then it's pointless trying to force Orlebar Brown down that route when they maybe have more of a rock star appeal or more of a true sort of rugged adventure appeal. Orlebar Brown exists around water. We
Mm.
exist,
Yeah.
around a
Yeah.
swimming pool or around on a boat or in the sea. And so the Portugieser and the yacht club, the whole yacht club environment just felt absolutely an easy fit for all of our brand and a very totally natural fit. And also, we've never done that. We do swim shorts, t-shirts, polos, we do cashmere, we do jackets, but that very elevated, very tailored, very refined resort wear. That allowed us. We put this capsule together around the watch, which I just think um, spoke in a slightly different voice that we've spoken with before.
Yeah, it's amazing, and obviously the end product has been a yacht club with a strap that features, a lovely texture, sort of
Yeah,
very similar to the OB, products, and
yeah.
then the buckle
The signature
in
slide
in
fastener is the buckle. It's just a really
yeah,
nice
which is
touch.
it's a lovely touch, and I guess synonymous with the brand. I'm really curious to hear what it was like for you to be involved with the design of this. And it's really interesting, when these collaborations take place, sometimes the brands that aren't, resort wear designers can bring things forward, and maybe you not being a watch or a strap designer brought things forward. And what was that process like of kind of coming together and kind of collaborating in on a product level, not only on the watch and the straps, but the whole collection?
Really fun. I mean, I think I
Yeah.
think we had the confidence through the getting to know you process that it was going to be fun. It was a true collaboration. It was very much, as you rightly say, I've never been involved in the design of watch, but a watch has always been one of those things that I'd love Orlebar Brown to do. So it was exciting to do something different.
Yeah.
We were very. I wanted IWC and Christian, who's the creative director of IWC, to be very part of the design of the capsule, the collection, the Orlebar Brown collection, and he was very inviting for me. We definitely participated in the development of the watch, and the two had to marry up. So, how did I feel about it? I was excited, and the process was ultimately pretty good fun.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. I think the next question is, we're talking about the collaboration. What is the personification of IWC? What's a Swiss guy like on a holiday? Uh, who is the person that rocks this particular collection?
Yeah, it's if I could just uh, had a look at the sort of the press release and saw all those beautiful blazers, and I was amazed at how much they looked like IWC. I was, must be quite a challenge to get that.
Well, that's the great part because it actually wasn't. Though they're instinctively all about brown as well. So I think that says what the naturalness um, of it. We toweling is so the going back to trying to address the question you asked. I think the watch and the collection, as with everything that OB does, we have sort of weird humps in the age groups of our customers. We seem to, it's 20, then it goes sort of 40, and
Yeah.
then it goes over 60 with these weird bumps. And everything, trying to appeal. There's a younger customer where, Oliver Brown, where perhaps they are earning a good salary for the first time and they choose to go and rent a villa with mates in or Ibiza, and
Hmm.
it might be a sort of badge of honour type thing, and they buy all of our brand or not. And I imagine the IWC watch has that similar sort of feel. It's a real they're buying luxury purchases for the first time type thing. Then we have a 45-year-old man who's our biggest customer, and they repeat buy all of our brand the whole time. This is clear. They're clearly, that this product's going to appeal to them. And then we have an older customer, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's home counties in the UK, who have they want unbranded, discreet, elegant, refined,
Mm,
all those words. So
mm,
I think this, just as the all of our brown shorts and our toweling polos, and this watch, I believe, has had. It was a conversation we always had during the design. Had to have that breadth of appeal. Couldn't just be super classic, older, whatever, or super refined, quiet. It had to have a bit of a noise or a bit of energy to it that would appeal to a younger or young at heart type of customer as well.
Yeah, fascinating. And you just mentioned the UK. What I find really interesting, and I mentioned to a good mate of mine who's a big watch collector in London, that we were chatting, and he said, Andy, I've just taken my OBs off, and I find the idea that such a famous and highly successful resort wear brand has come out of the United Kingdom. Did you ever expect that market to embrace you like it has? And
No, I
what
didn't
what has it
expect.
been like, the reception?
The reception's been fantastic, but definitely, it's a question that's asked an awful lot. And certainly when I started OB, it was one of the things. It was almost a laughing point. When I went out. The swimwear brand coming from London, from rainy old West
Yeah.
London. It was all slightly ridiculous, but I can't tell you. Beaches, holiday, travel, the value of holidays, just the memories they create, those things of being with friends and family, somewhere unusual, beautiful place, and it's just something that's true to me, and I've always recognised the value of it. It's something I want to continue doing for the rest of my life. And so creating a brand or a product and a story around that type of thing was far more me than doing sort of adrenaline fueled or rock star or whatever other lifestyle there is. But it it was weird that it came out of London, but that's where I am. That's how it happened. But lots of people have picked up on that, and I'm very aware of the weirdness of it.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And one more sort of thing in the world of watches, there's often a love of genres. Like there's a dress watch and a dive watch, and one that I'm particularly partial to is a travel watch. What is this a concept that makes sense to you?
I think men, the concept is totally identifiable and totally believable. In as much, with all of our men, never used to dress for holidays. Really, there was the rather sort of the classic, 1960s, those elegant travel type pictures. But when OB started, remember by the baggy board short and a grotty old t-shirt, or it was the super luxury version of travel and holiday, how people dress for holidays. So you'd have trunks and trunks and trunks of clothes, or they'd have a rucksack. There didn't seem to be anything in between. But I think all of our contributing to that way where that it's actually acceptable now for men to plan a holiday and to dress, for the evening part of it. They will take clothes for the beach part of it. They will take clothes for their hike or their run or whatever they're choosing, the sport they're choosing to do. Whereas, and I think that's definitely an evolvement that's happened over the last sort of 10 years. So watches are exactly the same. I am somebody when I have a watch for the evening, I'll have a watch for the weekend. I'm going surfing, I'll have a rubber strap, blah, blah, blah. It is. And also it's one of the few opportunities that we actually have to do that. I don't think I always, I don't, men can wear jewellery. I'm sort of thinking as I say this, I could choose to wear earrings if I wanted to. I could choose to wear a necklace if I wanted to. I choose not to, but my watch is my way that I can
Express yourself
reinterpret,
in that way.
express myself that day.
Yeah, I think a lot of men and women do. And look, having a little peruse of your Instagram earlier this week, I did spot quite a few different watches in there. And is it safe to say that you're a bit of a watch collector and you kind
I
of
wouldn't say
have a
I'm not. I'm an enthusiast. I love watches. I haven't
yeah?
got. I haven't got. I don't collect watches, but I have about 10 watches. 3 of which are IWC.
Wow,
I was an IWC customer. I bought my first ever IWC 10 years ago.
what was
Uh,
that?
it's a Top Gun. I've got it on. It's a green. It's the sort of the charcoal face Top Gun with the olive green khaki strap, which I love.
Is that
I love.
the with the black case or the sort of
Yes, yeah.
and that date that
Yeah.
looks like it's an altimeter window? Yeah, that's a really cool one.
Yeah.
And what about the other two pieces you have from IWC?
I've got another Top Gun, which is the black one, which I love,
Uh-huh.
which is more the sort of sports type, again, going down your sports type thing. Then a Portugieser over there wearing the evening, which is a black leather strap and a silver case and the white face. It's much more elegant, sort of discreet.
Beautiful.
Do you find? Oh, sorry, Felix.
No, I think I was just going to make a throwaway comment about not needing those other 7 watches, but
Well,
That's
it's
strong
weird.
representation.
Yeah, no, I think, but that's all quite genuine.
Yeah, there's never enough and always too many. What as a guy with fantastic taste, what features in a watch and design styles in a watch kind of are you attracted to?
I like this. For me, it's a sort of more sportier thing. I like cases which have the buttons and the stopwatches and the things that
Hmm.
you can push. I like there's I don't know. Just I've never been asked this before, weirdly, but I think no. I mean, it depends where you are. I go back to I'm instinctively drawn to either sport or super
Hmm.
refined and super elegant. That's
Okay.
where I get drawn to.
Makes sense.
But it has to have a weight to it. It has to have a
Yeah.
sort of a feeling of when you put something on. I like reasonably big faces. You know, I find watches is like masculinity. You know, I'm not very good with small face watch. It's about scale. It's about weight. And that isn't super heavy, but it has a personality to it.
You kind of mentioned you've bought a few watches along the way. Have you marked any special occasions in particular with a watch? How do you find yourself sort of acquiring those pieces
Oh, randomly.
On
randomly?
holiday, maybe.
Yeah. Well, weirdly, I bought this top. I bought this Top Gun because yes, I bought this the one I'm wearing today. I bought it because a friend of mine who I stayed with in the Caribbean over a particular Christmas, he had it, and
Wow.
I saw it, and I really liked it, and I went out and bought it about 3 months later. So there you go. That's absolutely true, and so that came off the cuff. I don't know. So that's. I mean, yeah. So I'd never thought about that before.
Well, no, that's,
That
I
was a
Yeah.
mean,
particularly great holiday.
yeah, I mean, I think it's quite common to sort of mark, we often get people contacting us saying, oh, I was in Venice and I saw this watch and I just thought I'd buy it. So I think it's about that mood that maybe
It's
you
very
get.
Yeah,
pure.
Yeah.
yeah. I think uh, yes. I mean, there are moments in my there are. I mean, I don't want to talk about weddings. I don't want to talk about anniversaries, but there are definitely there are occasions where you plan to wear a certain watch,
Mm.
things like that. But that's really not going to go into personal ones.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Everyone's different and kind of plays this game a little bit differently. But obviously, travel is a very important part of your life. And I think to wrap this out, I'd like to grab a couple of recommendations from yourself. The first recommendation, maybe your favorite spot to travel. Obviously when uh, the world permits it. But where's your absolute favorite spot in the world?
Okay, well, two spot. One was in the desert in Namibia, where I was just
Okay.
staring at, which was just totally blew my mind. It's the word desert, and then the different incarnations of desert, and it's just so barren. Just the most extraordinary landscape I've ever seen. And then the other thing, completely different. If I actually, it's quite an Australian sort of feel. Is my favourite place in the southwest of England, which is a place called
Hmm.
Cornwall, and I
Of
love
course.
the whole sort of surfing, rugged rock, Atlantic coast, that type of vibe. But if I was going to go somewhere, if you wanted the European flavour, it'd have to be sort of Portofino or something like that. Just the romance of these places is extraordinary. I think anyone go and have a summer, go and have a few weeks in maybe slightly out of season in places like Portofino. It's just a beauty.
Yeah, love that. And which pair of shorts are you taking with you for that trip?
Well, the most regular ones that I always take is I will always take a navy blue bulldog. That's always what I
Hmm.
will. Then we have something called the Bulldog X, which has a gold effect side flash, but in sort of black. With that,
Yep.
those are my personal favourites.
Hmm.
Um, and if you're asking for one pair, that's what I'd say.
Fair enough. And say you were making the long trek from the UK to Australia. What do you do to make that 14-hour flight pass a little bit better?
Oh, I do. I catch up on work. I'm afraid. I
Of
mean,
course.
I relish those opportunities. I'm a terrible sleeper. I'm a total insomniac. I can't sleep, so it's pointless even trying. I relish having 14 hours, and okay, I'm stuffing my face full of crisps and chocolate as well, and I'm watching a film. But there's no question. I love those hours when I cannot have a phone ringing. I cannot be contacted by email, and I will catch up on stuff that's been clogging up my inbox, or I've been planning to do, or I've allowed myself some time to think, all those sort of things. for for months.
Well, you're much more productive than Felix and I are. You sound like you work a lot. No, Felix, you sound like you're always working, and it's paid off. But how do you like to unwind and switch off?
That's why I work on flights, because I mostly unwind too much. I don't find enjoyment.
Clever. You're doing it the right way around.
Well, I'm not sure I am, but anyway.
I think you are.
No, I'm not. How do I unwind? At the moment, in the current situation where we are, it's about fresh air. I'm outdoors. I'm not hugely intensive about what I do, but I love. It normally revolves around water. I'm going in the sea a lot. I'm walking on cliffs a lot. I am walking the dogs. I've got 3 dogs. They play a big part. I'm not going around. I regret to say I'm not reading a new deep book. I'm not learning something. It's fairly simple.
No masterclasses.
No, I wish there were.
Thank you so much for taking the time. We've I think we've probably gone over a little bit, but we really appreciate you joining us and sharing so many fantastic stories.
No, well, thank you very much for asking me.
Look, well, Felix, have you got anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think this is it. I'm just busy browsing the Orlebar Brown website for my next pair of shorts.
Marvellous. Well, let us know.
Yeah, we're going to have to speak to our friends at IWC to organise a few pairs.
Or you can speak to us. Definitely.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Well, that was fun to chat to Adam.
What a guy. I need to buy some pants.
I think we both
swim
do.
Pants.
Yeah, we should get matching.
Yeah.
What he did, what he kind of said that was interesting and I took away was sort of the notion of a travel watch.
Yeah.
Which I think we asked him about, but what do you...
I think about travel watches a fair bit. Like
you used to travel a lot.
Yeah, with the watch. It's one of my, like everyone's like, oh, I love dive watches. Oh, I love pilot. I like a travel watch, and I think it's an underrated sort of sub-genre. I don't know.
Quasi-category.
Sub-genre of watches. James Bond, where's Orlebar Brown?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting topic. Like when you are traveling, especially overseas, like you don't really want to be taking. Well, I don't.
Well, yeah. How do you do it? How do you travel? Talk to me.
I'm a one watch when I travel kind of guy for a few reasons.
Roll up.
Insurance. I like my stuff insured. It's a pain. There's caps on insurance as well. So like you can't take, something over 10K with my insurance overseas. So I don't want to be, underinsured and traveling in a foreign place, and I don't want to draw the wrong kind of attention. So I play on the safe side.
Yep.
I tend to take one watch for that reason, but also I like to leave room to take a watch home with me if I need.
I've got a similar sort of thing. Insurance, I just get stock standard travel insurance.
Yeah.
So I take a watch that I'm not going to be heartbroken if something happens to it, basically. Yep. So that's, usually a lower value thing. And typically when this is a weird sort of example, I travel and I'll maybe have another brand watch with me. I'm going to try on a lot of watches. So it's less of a concern for me in that way. So I tend to go low value or high replaceability.
Yeah, it just seems like one of those things of like a really easy way to add a lot of stress to your trip, because logistically it's like you have customs to deal with. If you're thinking about like you want to go somewhere with a pool, don't take it off. Do you take it off? I know people that have like gone, you're in the resort and suddenly your Submariner gets water in there. Nothing's going to kill your holiday quicker. But also like who really trusts hotel safes?
No one does.
No one does. What about when you're on your plane? And
that's why I only take one. Always wear it. Like anything else is stupid.
Like I said, it just seems like a really easy way to add like a lot of stress to a trip.
So what about what? So that's what we're taking. Like it's one watch. It's not too exy, all that stuff. But what does a travel watch need to have?
Okay, for me, like you said, probably not too flashy. So I leave my Rainbow Tay toner at home, but I like something that's probably a bit more lightweight, a fun strap sort of beast. So something I can put a NATO on or a rubber strap or something. Yep. Maybe has a bracelet. That'll give me the variety I need for a couple of weeks.
100% agree.
So that means it's probably a dive watch.
Oh yeah. So for one thing I'll add on straps, I think it's got to be something you can get wet.
Yeah.
And I like NATO for the extra security thing.
100%.
So you can't pop it off as easily. You've got 2 spring bars to...
Also pretty unassuming, the NATO strap. Like it looks like you can make any watch look,
Look like it's on a $7 strap.
Exactly. What about you?
Well, yeah, look, I mean, divers, yes, but so the one, my actual watch that I tend to travel the most with would be the Helios. Mm-hmm. So that's, it's slender. I like a slender profile. Like, I don't want anything too, like, knocking around, like if I'm going up, weird hotel stairs, any of that sort of stuff that
Even
you're
just
carrying
falling asleep.
bags, like it's...
If you're on a plane and like you fall asleep, it's like a 24-hour flight or whatever. Like
Yeah.
you're knocking around, you're constantly grabbing at things, buckles, seatbelts.
So yeah, something that's not going to deal with that. I like thin, so the Helios, and also I like because mine's got a super bright yellow dial. It makes me feel a little bit happy. But other ones I really like that. I think the best travel watch I reckon would be, if your money is less of a concern, Aquanaut.
Yeah, okay.
Like it's thin, it's super wearable.
Yep.
It's not. I mean, it's obvious these days, but it's not. Totally blingy. It's on a rubber strap. Another one I really like is the Longines VHP GMT that I did a little thing with a while ago.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
It's quartz. Quartz I quite rate as well. I don't want to be messing with too much complication or dates. So I don't even think of GMTs that.
Yeah, who uses it? Again, it's another thing.
That's the other reason I like the Helios GMT bezel, which I find
Yeah.
much. It sort of gets the same effect, but without any of the stress.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like when you are doing like an international flight, time zones are changing, dates changing. For me, GMT, like it just confuses me even more.
That's weird because you've got a few GMTs. I would have thought the pilot's watch,
No.
but that's okay. So what do you normally wear? What have you worn? Like last trip, what did you wear?
Last trip was the Black Bay 58.
Classic.
Yeah, that was perfect. I was in the UK for 3 weeks with a change of strap, every couple of days, picked up a few straps while I was there. I think I came home with a watch as well.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing of like...
I tend to come home with mine.
Yeah, taxes. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I also remembered I wrote an article on Executive Traveller on what sort of watch you should travel with. So I'll link that up. That
Definitely.
seems like we could have circumvented this discussion.
You could have saved us all some time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we should put a pin in it.
It's done.
Thank you to IWC and to Adam Brown for joining us for the bulk of today's episode.
Yeah, that was great.
Thank you to our sponsors and to Major Tom Media for producing and supporting the podcast.
Yep. How do people get in touch with us if they need to shoot us an email?
Shoot us an email via otthepodcast@gmail.com.
And if you want to do it the new-fashioned way on Instagram, that's ot.podcast.
Hit us in DM.
See you later.
See you next time.